The morning the world shifted for 12-year-old Amora, Lewis began like any other, quiet, ordinary, almost painfully normal. She woke to the smell of her grandmother's shea butter lotion drifting through the hallway like a familiar hymn. Her small bedroom, painted the color of warm sand, still carried the echoes of her dreams, gentle, soft things that never prepared her for the violence waiting outside the school gates. Amora stood in the mirror tying her braids, weaving them with the care of someone who understood their importance. Her grandmother always told her, "Your hair carries history. Baby, walk like you know the price your ancestors paid." So Amora did. She carried pride even on days when her small shoulders shook under the weight of other people's cruelty. She slipped on her backpack, kissed her grandmother on the cheek, and stepped into the day with a bravery she didn't yet recognize as bravery. But courage is often invisible until the world decides to test it. The school bus dropped her off near Riverside Park, the shortcut most students took to avoid walking around the long, winding fence on the main road. The path cut through a cluster of old trees, their roots gripping the earth like they were trying to hold something in. Maybe secrets, maybe stories, maybe warnings. To the right of the path was a pond. Locals spoke about it in half-truths and full exaggerations. Kids whispered about fish with razor teeth, shadows darting under the mossy surface, and strange ripples moving against the wind. Adults dismissed it all with tired shrugs. Piranhas? In a public park? Impossible. Still, nobody swam in it, and nobody went near it without an uneasy glance. Amora avoided it too, not because she believed in monsters, but because she had enough to worry about without adding imaginary dangers to the list. But Jordan Hale, he wasn't imaginary. He was very real, and today he was waiting. Jordan towered near the edge of the pond with his trio of shadows, Dylan, Max, and the quiet one they called Leo. They weren't evil kids, not exactly. Just boys who learned early that power could be stolen when you didn't have any of your own. Jordan wielded cruelty like other kids wielded pencils, daily, casually, thoughtlessly. He noticed Amora the moment she stepped onto the path. "Well, look who decided to bless us with a presence," Jordan drawled. "Little Miss Sunshine herself." His friends laughed like they were being paid for it. Amora kept walking. That was her grandmother's rule. Ignore the windstorms, baby. They only take your peace if you open your door. But Jordan was not a windstorm today. He was a wall. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Where do you think you're going? Not even going to say hello?" Amora swallowed. "I'm going to school." "Move, Jordan." He smirked, leaning in. "Say that again." "I said move." Her voice did not shake, and that bothered him. Bullies survive on fear. Confidence is poison. Jordan's smirk faltered and resurfaced. Sharper. "You think you're better than everyone because you always get those awards? Those stupid certificates." Amora's silence offended him more than any answer. Dylan chimed in. "She always act like she's some kind of royalty." Max added, "Yeah, too good to talk to us." Only Leo looked uncomfortable, kicking the dirt with the toe of his shoe. Jordan reached out and tugged one of Amora's braids. "Talking to you is supposed to be, what? Privilege." Amora slapped his hand away. "Don't touch my hair." Jordan's face twisted, not with pain, but with embarrassment. Amora had violated the unspoken rule. She stood up for herself. The other boys stayed, unsure whether this moment was something to laugh at or fear. Jordan chose humiliation. "Oh, I'm sorry," he mocked. "Did I mess up your princess hair?" He flicked her braid again. "Does it have magical powers or something?" "You wouldn't understand," Amora said, blinking fast to hold back the sting in her eyes. "You never will." Jordan's voice dropped. "Say that again." "No." That one word, quiet, firm, final, pushed him over the edge. And in a moment too swift to predict, too sudden to stop, Jordan shoved her backward. Her breath caught. Her foot slipped, and the world tilted. The pond swallowed her with a cold that felt like punishment. The water closed over her head, muffling the world into a blur of green and silence. Amora kicked upward, panic rushing through her chest. The pond was deeper than it looked. The muddy bottom pulled at her shoes like it wanted to keep her. She surfaced with a gasping cry, her braids soaked and heavy, her arms flailing. Jordan's grin vanished. He hadn't meant for her to fall in. Not really. Bullies often push without thinking about the consequences, and consequences were rising around him like ghosts. Dylan whispered, "Dude, what did you do?" Max's face drained of color. "Jordan, people say the pond has." "Shut up." Jordan snapped, but his voice trembled. Leo took a hesitant step forward. "We should help her." Jordan grabbed his arm. "No, if we pull her out, she'll tell everyone I pushed her. I'll get suspended again." Amora struggled, her hands breaking the surface as she tried to swim. But the muck kept dragging her downward, and fear coiled around her ribs. She yelled, "Help!" But Jordan's fear of consequences was louder than the fear in her voice. "We can't," he muttered. Let's just go." Leo ripped his arm free. "I'm not leaving her." But Jordan shoved him back. Leo stumbled, not enough to fall, but enough to understand the warning. Jordan hissed at his group, "We walk away. Now." But none of them moved, because something else was moving. The water around Amora stayed, soft at first, then sharper, like dozens of tiny currents weaving around her legs. The boys watched the ripples expand into erratic circles. Dylan whispered, "Jordan, something's in the water." Max backed away. "We should go. We should definitely go." Leo's face filled with terror. "Jordan, get her out." The rumor about piranhas suddenly felt less like a joke and more like a prophecy. Jordan froze. His mind rattled like a loose wheel, his actions, his fear, and his pride collapsing into panic. The water rippled again, closer to Amora's waist this time. "Help me!" She cried, her voice cracking. Jordan snapped. Not in anger. In terror. He rushed to the edge of the pond, but didn't reach his hand out. Instead, he stood there trembling, unable to move forward or backward, trapped between his guilt and his cowardice. "Amora, don't move," he stammered. "Just stay still." She stared at him, her eyes blazing with betrayal. "You did this to me." Jordan flinched. The water swirled again, and that's when he saw it, a quick flash beneath the surface, a dot of silver, then another, then more. Little shadows gliding under her feet like whispers of danger. Jordan stumbled backward, terror exploding in his chest. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" Max pulled at his sleeve. "Jordan, we have to run." "No!" Jordan shouted, dropping to his knees. "We can't leave her. I didn't." At last, the truth was catching up to him. He crawled closer to the edge, finally reaching out his hand. "Take my hand." Amora stayed, gasping, her limbs heavy with exhaustion. She didn't trust him. She couldn't. But she also couldn't stay in the water. She reached out. A sudden splash burst behind her. Jordan screamed. Max screamed. Dylan fell backward. Leo covered his mouth. Amora twisted around, choking on fear. Something was coming toward her. Fast. She froze, her hands suspended in the air, eyes locked on the approaching ripple, sharp, determined, precise. Jordan shouted, "Hurry!" Amora lunged forward. Her fingers brushed his. But before she could grab hold, another splash erupted, closer this time, and Jordan jerked backward out of reflex. His fear outweighed his instinct to save her. Amora slipped under again. Leo screamed, "Jordan, do something!" Jordan scrambled back to the edge, finally grabbing a long branch and thrusting it toward the water. "Amora, grab it!" She surfaced again, coughing, and this time her fingers curled around the branch with the last of her strength. Jordan pulled. The three other boys rushed to help, gripping the branch, tugging in desperate unison. Their breaths came out in ragged gasps. Their shoes slipped in the mud. Panic clawed through the air. The water churned behind her with that same eerie ripple, faster, louder, and hungrier in rhythm. Jordan screamed, "Pull! Pull!" The boys heaved, their bodies shaking with fear and guilt and adrenaline. And with one violent drag, Amora burst out of the pond, collapsing onto the grass like a fallen bird, trembling, coughing, her clothes drenched, her dignity bruised. She lay there crying silently, not just from fear, but from betrayal, from the weight of what had been done to her. She looked up at Jordan, her eyes fierce and full of fire. You could have let me drown. Jordan's face crumpled. I. He couldn't speak, because deep down, he realized the truth. He hadn't tried to save her because he cared. He tried to save her because he was afraid of what would happen to him if she didn't survive. The pond behind them fell silent, its surface smooth again, hiding whatever lurked beneath. But the silence between Jordan and Amara, that held enough storms to last a lifetime. And what happened next, how justice finally found its way into the light, began with one voice. Not Amara's, not Jordan's, but Leo's. And his confession would change everything. Amara sat on the grass, drenched and trembling, the cold slicing through her clothes like a quiet accusation. The pond behind her had gone still again, pretending innocence. Jordan stood only a few feet away, frozen between guilt and fear, his breath shaking as though the world had turned on him instead. Dylan and Max hovered near the trees, pale and silent, while Leo crouched beside Amara, his hand hovering helplessly above her shoulder, afraid to touch her yet unable to look away. The morning sun had risen higher, but nothing felt bright about it. "Are you okay?" Leo asked softly. Amara didn't answer. The words were there, trapped behind a lump in her throat, unable to push past the shock. She closed her eyes, her chest heaving. The water hadn't taken her, but the fear still clung to her skin like algae. Jordan stepped forward. "Amara, I didn't mean." She flinched, and the entire world seemed to recoil with her. Jordan's mouth fell open, and he stopped moving. Something about her fear gutted him, more than any punishment ever could. Leo turned on him. "You pushed her. What did you think was going to happen?" Jordan shook his head violently. "No, it wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be like that. She made me mad. I didn't mean." "You never mean anything," Leo snapped. "But you still do it." Amora tried to stand, but her legs buckled under her. Leo caught her before she fell. Her breath hitched, and she squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the humiliation burn hotter than anything else. Dylan finally stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "We have to tell someone." Max grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? We'll all get in trouble." Leo stood up abruptly, pushing Max's hand off Dylan. "Trouble? She could have died. This isn't some joke." Max shifted, eyes darting nervously. "We didn't shove her." "But you watched," Leo said, his voice fierce. "You watched." Jordan's fists clenched at his sides. His face was pale and sweaty, his shoulders heaving with shallow breaths. "I'll fix it," he said weakly. "I'll explain everything." Amora opened her eyes and whispered, "Don't touch me. Don't come near me." Jordan's heart twisted. "Amora, I swear." Leo snapped, "Back up, Jordan." Jordan hesitated, then stepped back, his chest collapsing inward as if he'd been punched. For the first time, he looked small, like a shadow shrinking under the weight of its own darkness. Leo helped Amara up slowly. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, but she walked with her chin lifted just enough to show she wasn't broken. She wouldn't give Jordan that satisfaction. Jordan followed several feet behind, like a guilty echo, unsure whether he was allowed to be there or whether he deserved to disappear. When they reached the main road, cars rolled by with the usual morning rush, oblivious to the catastrophe that had just unraveled in the park. Amora's clothes clung to her body, dripping water onto the sidewalk with each shaky step. Leo hovered beside her protectively, glancing back at Jordan every few seconds with glare that held more courage than most adults carried. By the time they reached the school gates, a teacher spotted them from across the courtyard. Her eyes widened as she hurried over, dropping the stack of attendance sheets in her hands. "Amora, sweetheart, what happened to you?" Amora swallowed hard. Her mouth felt dry, even though her clothes were drenched. Leo stepped forward. "She fell in the pond," he said, his voice low. Jordan's head snapped toward him, panic flashing in his eyes. Leo didn't say more, not yet, but the implication trembled in the air like a threat of thunder. The teacher wrapped her arm around Amora's shoulders, guiding her toward the office. Jordan and the boys followed behind like reluctant shadows. Inside the office, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, oblivious to the war unfolding beneath them. The secretary jumped from her chair when she saw Amora. "Oh, what on earth? Sweetheart, come sit." Leo pulled out the chair for her. Amora sank down, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as every drop of water running off her clothes seemed to announce her humiliation to the room. The teacher knelt in front of her. "Amora," she said gently, "can you tell us what happened?" Amora tried to speak, but her throat closed. Her hands clenched around the seat as tears blurred the room. Everything felt like a blur. Water, faces, noise. Her grandmother always told her, when fear tries to steal your voice, baby, breathe. Your truth can't stay drowned for long. So Amora breathed. Leo looked at her, offering a quiet nod. Her voice came out soft, cracked around the edges. "Jordan, push me." The room froze. The teacher's face hardened with a seriousness Amora had never seen before. "Jordan Hale." Jordan stepped back as if someone had struck him. "And no, wait, I didn't mean." Leo cut him off. He pushed her. We all saw. The teacher stood up, her jaw tight. "All of you, my office. Now." Jordan swallowed hard. "I said I didn't mean." But the teacher silenced him with a raised hand. "That does not matter." The principal arrived moments later, drawn by the commotion. He looked at Amora's soaked clothes, her trembling hands, and the fear still swimming in her eyes. "What happened?" he demanded. Jordan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Leo spoke instead, his voice trembling but firm. He pushed her into the pond at Riverside. She could have drowned. Something was moving in the water, too. It wasn't safe. The principal stared at Jordan, face tightening. "Is this true?" Jordan's breath faltered. The room closed in around him. Amora stared at him, too, not with anger, but with a wounded disappointment that hurt more than anything. Jordan whispered, "I didn't think she'd fall. I was mad. I just pushed a little. I swear I was going to help. I swear." "But you didn't," Leo said. "Not until you panicked." The truth cut deeper than Jordan expected. The school called Amora's grandmother immediately. When she arrived, her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw Amora. She wrapped her granddaughter in her arms, whispering prayers of gratitude into her hair. Amora held onto her tightly, feeling the warmth return to her bones. Her grandmother pulled back, cupping her face. "Baby, what happened?" Amora hesitated only a second. "Jordan pushed me." The pain in her grandmother's eyes was not confusion or shock. It was recognition. A pain carved from history, from the scars of generations who knew what it felt like to be shoved into danger by someone who thought they had the right to do it. Her grandmother turned to the principal, her voice steady but fierce. "What are you going to do about this?" The principal took a slow breath. "Jordan Hale will be suspended immediately, and I will be calling the district office as well. This wasn't just bullying. It was assault." Jordan's knees nearly buckled. His mother arrived moments later, her face tight with confusion and rising panic. When she heard the accusation, she spun toward her son. "Jordan, tell me this isn't true." Jordan's lips quivered. "Mom, I didn't. She made me mad. I wasn't thinking." His mother covered her mouth, her eyes filling with horror, not just at what he'd done, but at what it meant, at what people would now see when they looked at her child. But the story did not stay inside that office. By lunchtime, students whispered through hallways like wind weaving through tall grass. Jordan Hale pushed Amora Lewis into the piranha pond. Kids who never noticed Amora before now stared at her with wide, uneasy eyes, not sure whether to offer sympathy or keep their distance. Some kids snickered quietly, making jokes about the pond, the fish, and the survival. Others fell silent when she walked by, as though shame were contagious. But not everyone stayed silent. During fifth period, when Amora returned to class and borrowed clothes from a nurse's cabinet, she found a small surprise waiting on her desk, a folded note. She opened it with trembling fingers. "I saw what happened from across the park. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here." It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was careful and warm. For the first time that day, Amora felt something shift, a tiny glow of solidarity in a room full of uncertainty. Back in the front office, Jordan sat in the corner, suspended, waiting for the district counselor to arrive. His hands trembled as he replayed the moment, his shove, her terror. He didn't feel like a bully now. He felt like a boy who had finally seen the reflection of his own cruelty, and it terrified him. His mother sat beside him, silent, shaking her head in disbelief. "Finally," she whispered, "what made you think you could do that to her? What made you think this was okay?" Jordan felt something crack inside him. "I don't know. I didn't think she mattered that much." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. His mother recoiled as though he'd slapped her. "My God!" Jordan broke into sobs, because he finally understood. The moment he pushed Amora, he revealed a part of himself he never wanted to face. In the principal's office, Amora sat beside her grandmother as a district counselor took notes. Her grandmother's hand rested on her back like a shield. The counselor asked gentle questions, what she felt, what she remembered, whether she felt safe. Amora answered in a soft, steady voice. She was scared, but she was not small. Not anymore. She realized something powerful. Fear didn't silence her. It sharpened her truth. Later that afternoon, when the school day ended, Leo caught up with Amora near the exit. He stood awkwardly, backpack dangling from one strap. Amora, you okay?" She nodded slowly, trying to be. Leo looked down. "I'm really sorry. I should have stopped him. I froze." "You helped me," she said. "You spoke up." He shrugged, embarrassed. Jordan was wrong. And sometimes you have to say it out loud. Amora looked at him for a long moment. Maybe courage didn't come in loud declarations or perfect timing. Maybe sometimes it looked like a quiet boy choosing honesty over loyalty. "Thank you," she whispered. Leo smiled slightly. "If he messes with you again, I'll tell everyone, even the district board. I don't care." For the first time since the pond, Amora felt the ground beneath her feet solidify. But the truth had not finished its journey. That evening, Leo went home and sat at his desk, staring at his school notebook. He turned to a clean page, took a breath, and began writing. The truth, every detail, every lie, every moment Jordan stood there, choosing fear over decency. He filled 3 pages before he stopped. Then he signed it. The next morning, he handed the pages to the principal. "Use this," he said. "She deserves justice." The principal looked at the boy for a long moment. This took courage. Leo swallowed, not as much as she had. The principal nodded slowly. "This will help." Leo walked away, his heart heavy but certain. He didn't know that his statement would spark something far larger than he imagined. He didn't know that Amora's truth was about to spread beyond the school walls, into the community, into conversations that had been quiet too long. He didn't know that the pond was not the only place where danger hid under the surface, because justice was coming. And Jordan Hale had no idea what was waiting for him next. The morning after Leo submitted his written statement, the school felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just tense, like the air was holding its breath. News traveled in whispers that clung to lockers and drifted through hallways like sneaking vines. Teachers exchanged glances. Students pulled each other aside. Rumors mixed with truth until nobody could tell where one ended and the other began. Amora arrived that morning with her grandmother, who insisted on walking her all the way to the principal's office. Amora didn't protest. Something inside her felt steadier now, as though yesterday's terror had carved out space for a stronger version of herself to grow. Her grandmother squeezed her hand gently before they stepped inside. The principal stood up the moment they entered. His face carried the same seriousness from the day before, but now there was something else too, determination. "Good morning, Amora. Mrs. Lewis. Thank you for coming." He motioned for them to sit. Amora lowered herself slowly into the chair, aware of the eyes watching her from the office windows. She didn't shrink this time. She met every glance with calm resolve. "We've completed our preliminary investigation," the principal said, adjusting his glasses. Leo's written statement was extremely detailed. Dylan and Max had confirmed his account. Amora felt a quiet exhale escape her. Her grandmother nodded. "Good. That boy needs to be held accountable." The principal leaned forward. "Jordan Hale will be suspended for 10 days. We are recommending a mandatory behavioral intervention program. Additionally, the district may consider transferring him to another school. Amora absorbed the word slowly. Punishment wasn't what she wanted. Not exactly. What she wanted was safety. Respect. Recognition that what happened to her mattered. Hearing the principal speak with such certainty brought a sense of validation she hadn't realized she needed. Her grandmother placed a gentle hand on her knee. "We appreciate the seriousness." Then her voice lowered, firm but controlled. "But I need to know what steps you're taking to protect my granddaughter going forward." The principal nodded as though he prepared for this. "Amora will not walk through that park again. We're arranging a safer route home. A staff member will accompany her outside after school until we have a permanent plan." Amora blinked. She hadn't expected that. The idea of someone walking with her felt strange, but also comforting. Her grandmother's eyes softened. "Thank you." The principal glanced at Amora. "You showed incredible strength yesterday. What happened to you shouldn't happen to any student. We will do everything in our power to make sure it never happens again." Amora felt a warmth unfurl in her chest. Not victory, not triumph. Something gentler, something like recognition. Jordan didn't come to school that day, or the day after. When he finally returned to collect some assignments before his suspension officially started, he walked the halls like a ghost. Shoulders slumped, head down, avoiding every stare. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be looked at not with admiration or fear, but with disappointment. A group of 8th graders whispered loudly as he passed. "That's him. He pushed her. He almost got her killed." Jordan flinched at each word. He didn't defend himself. He didn't snarl or snap. The fight was gone. He reached his locker, only to find Leo standing there waiting. Jordan froze. "What do you want?" Leo stayed still, his expression unreadable. "You think this is about being punished?" he asked quietly. Jordan swallowed. "Isn't it?" Leo shook his head. "No, this is about what you did. Not just pushing her, but thinking she didn't matter." Jordan's eyes darted away. "I didn't mean it like that." "You did," Leo said, "or you wouldn't have said it." Jordan gripped the edge of his locker. "I don't know why I'm like this." Leo took a slow breath. "Then figure it out. Because you hurt someone who didn't deserve it. And this time, you don't get to hide behind excuses." Jordan's throat tightened. "Do you hate me?" "No," Leo said. "I'm just not protecting you anymore." Jordan nodded, small, defeated. "I get it." But Leo didn't walk away. Not yet. He looked at Jordan with a seriousness beyond his years. "You need to apologize to her. A real apology. Not the kind you give because adults tell you to. The kind you give because you finally understand." Jordan almost asked how he was supposed to do that. But he already knew. He just wasn't sure he had the courage to try. Meanwhile, Amora was slowly reclaiming her rhythm. By the end of the week, students she barely knew began offering small gestures. A quiet smile. A seat saved in class. A sticky note on her desk that read, "You're strong." Teachers checked on her discreetly. Not pity, just support. Break times became less lonely. Kayla from her English class started sitting with her. Marcus from science offered her half his sandwich one day, shrugging like it wasn't a big deal. It was. Even the oldest students, the ones who rarely noticed 6th graders, nodded at her in the hallway with a strange kind of respect. Amora didn't seek attention. She didn't bask in it, but she accepted each gesture like a piece of sunlight after too many days of rain. Her grandmother watched her closely at home, making sure she rested and making sure she felt heard. Amora talked, slowly, in bits, sharing more each evening, about fear, about betrayal, about the moment the pond swallowed her breath. Her grandmother listened with silent strength, braiding her hair at night with the same gentleness she had since Amora was little. One night she said, "What they tried to drown in you, baby, came up shining." And Amora believed her. By the next Monday, the school arranged a meeting. Amora, her grandmother, Jordan, his mother, the principal, and the counselor. Amora didn't want to see him, but she agreed. Not for him, for herself. When Jordan walked into the room, he looked smaller than she remembered. His eyes flickered to haze, then dropped immediately. His mother appeared exhausted, as though the last week had drained every ounce of pride she once held. Amora sat up straight, shoulders squared. Her grandmother sat beside her, calm but unyielding. The counselor spoke first. "We're here to discuss accountability and healing." Jordan twisted his fingers nervously. I want to say something." The room fell still. He lifted his head slowly, and when he spoke, his voice cracked. "Amora, I'm sorry." She inhaled sharply but said nothing. Jordan swallowed hard. "I didn't push you because of anything you did. I pushed you because I wanted to feel like I had power. I wanted to make someone feel small so I could feel big." He blinked rapidly. "And that was wrong. Really wrong." His mother looked down, her eyes glistening. Jordan continued, voice trembling. "When you fell, when you screamed, I was scared. But not for you. I was scared for myself. And that's awful." A tear slid down his cheek. "I didn't see you as a person in that moment, and I hate myself for it." Amora's pulse thumped in her ears. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with something heavier, more complicated. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she listened. The counselor turned to her. "Amora, is there anything you want to say?" She looked at Jordan, not with softness, not with anger, with truth. "You hurt me," she said quietly. "You made me feel worthless, like I was just something you could push, like I didn't deserve respect or safety." Jordan's eyes watered. "I know. And when I was in the water, I wasn't just scared of drowning." She paused, her voice steady. "I was scared because you didn't care." Jordan's shoulders crumbled under the weight of her words. Amora continued, "I don't know if your apology is enough, but hearing you admit what you did, that matters. Not for you, for me." Her grandmother squeezed her hand gently. Amora finished softly, "I don't want revenge. I just want to be safe, and respected, and left alone." Jordan nodded quickly, tears slipping down his face. "I'll stay away. I promise." Amora believed him, not because of his words, but because of his collapse. The meeting ended not with reconciliation, but with something more honest. Clarity. Over the next weeks, Jordan kept his distance. He flinched whenever he saw her in the hall, turning away like someone ashamed of their own shadow. He joined the intervention program, met with counselors, and truly tried, to understand the ugliness he'd carried. Amora continued growing stronger. She walked confidently, even through the holes where whispers still lingered. She joined the reading club. She made friends. She laughed again, quietly at first, then fully, like the sound had relearned its way back to her. Reporters never came. There were no news stories, no internet uproars. This wasn't a viral incident. It was a human one. And sometimes the quiet justice is the most meaningful kind. One afternoon, Amora visited Riverside Park again, not to relive anything, but to reclaim something. Leo walked beside her, carrying 2 small bags of bread for the ducks. "Are you sure you want to come here?" he asked. Amora nodded. "I'm not scared of the pond anymore." They stood at the edge, not close, but close enough to acknowledge its presence. The water was still, ordinary. Its danger had been exaggerated, though the trauma surrounding it was not. Amora tossed a piece of bread into the water. Ducks approached, breaking the surface with gentle ripples. Leo watched her quietly. "You're brave," he said. Amora shook her head. "No, I was scared." "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Leo said. "It means you face it anyway." Amora smiled a little. "Maybe." Leo offered her another piece of bread. She took it, tossing it farther into the pond. The water remained calm. "Do you think he'll change?" she asked softly. Leo shrugged. "People can change, if they want to." Amora nodded slowly. "I hope he does." Leo glanced at her. "You're too kind." "No," she said. "I'm honest." He smiled. They stood together, the girl who refused to drown and the boy who refused to let the truth stay silent. Not victims, not heroes, just 2 kids learning that dignity, once reclaimed, becomes something unshakable. Months passed. Amora grew into someone stronger than she ever imagined, someone who knew the value of her voice. Jordan transferred schools before the year ended. Nobody cheered, nobody celebrated. But the halls felt different without the constant threat of him. Lighter. At the award ceremony in June, Amora received the Student Courage Medal, an honor given only twice before in the school's history. When her name was announced, the entire auditorium rose in a standing ovation that felt like thunder rolling through her bones. She walked onto the stage, not with fear, not with pride, but with a quiet certainty. She accepted the medal from the principal, whose eyes shone with respect. After the ceremony, her grandmother hugged her tightly. "You found your strength, baby," she whispered, "and you held on to it." Amora looked around the auditorium full of students who had watched her rise from something meant to break her. "I didn't hold on to it," she said softly. "I built it." Her grandmother smiled, a smile that held generations of resilience. And as Amora stepped outside into the warm sunlight, she realized something profound. The world may push. The world may try to drown. But truth rises. Strength rises. She rises. And no pond, no bully, no fear could ever hold her under again.